Balake, where's Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Aaron.
Aaron is here. Welcome back to SPTV, everyone. I explained the SPTV thing in the live stream I finished just a little bit ago, so check that out. Okay, big development in the Valerie Haney lawsuit against David Miscavige and Scientology. Rebecca Minkoff, Jenna Elfman, and a whole slew of other celebrities have just been named by Valerie Haney as potential arbitrators in this lawsuit. You know, every time I mention Rebecca Minkoff being a Scientologist, the response that I get is nobody seems to have any clue that Rebecca Minkoff is a Scientologist. Now, you might be going, who's Rebecca Minkoff? Rebecca Minkoff is one of the most famous purse designers in the fashion industry. Let me add this to the stream here. Ex-Scientologist names Jenna Elfman and Rebecca Minkoff as arbitrators in kidnapping lawsuit after failing to drag Tom Cruise into legal war. I'm not going to use this article as my reference. I just wanted to show you, well, I wanted to show you who Rebecca Minkoff is in case you were familiar with the face, but not the name. I'm guessing most people are more familiar with the name and not the face. Rebecca Minkoff's been born and raised in Scientology. Her brothers, Uri and Max, I've known them all since I was 13 years old. Her father is Dr. David Minkoff, who was wrapped up in the Lisa McPherson Scientology death. Her father, David Minkoff, is also wrapped up in the Whitney Mills Scientology death. Her father's in a lot of trouble. Okay, so real quick, this is the actual original complaint in the lawsuit. You can see here. Let me highlight this. Oh, I hate it when it doesn't highlight yellow. Okay, false imprisonment, kidnapping, stalking, libel, slander, constructive invasion of privacy, intentional infliction of emotional distress, human trafficking, failure to pay minimum wage, failure to provide days of rest, violation of California labor code, fraudulent inducement of employment, negligent representation, and negligence. These are all complaints being made in a civil suit against Church of Scientology International, Religious Technology Center, and David Miscavige. Now, for the life of me, I have not been able to find the original, the actual most recent filing in this case. So I'm going to resort to using the blog post on this subject at the Underground Bunker blog. And it will have to do for now, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so here we go. Let's see. So headline, Valerie Haney nominates Jenna Elfman, Giovanni Ribisi, and 13 others for arbitrator. Okay, again, I like to not assume everybody already knows what we're talking about. Here's the problem Valerie Haney's running into in her lawsuit against Scientology. All Scientologists, staff members, Sea Org members, sign agreements promising never to sue Scientology for any reason whatsoever. Now, these agreements are signed under duress, but in order to invalidate the agreements, the court would have to rule in each case where it comes up that the agreements were signed under duress. In Valerie's case, the judge did not make that determination, and the judge said Valerie, instead of being allowed to move forward with her case in court, would have to subject herself to Scientology's internal religious arbitration, which is a complete and utter sham. I don't even want to go into in this video, go into how absurd and ridiculous that is. I've done it in earlier videos. And because it's not the purpose of this video, I just don't want to cover all that ground again. But that's where we're at. The court is saying you have to do internal arbitration in Scientology. Valerie has been in the process of trying to do that. The first, the procedure that's been agreed upon is Scientology selects one arbitrator. Valerie selects another arbitrator. The arbitrator has to be a Scientologist in good standing. And then those two arbitrators select a third arbitrator. But all three arbitrators have to be a Scientologist in good standing. Now, Valerie Haney is considered a suppressive person by Scientology. It is against Scientology policy for a Scientologist to do anything to help someone who Scientology has declared a suppressive person. And yet the court is requiring Valerie Haney, a former Scientologist, declared suppressive person, to subject herself to the whims, to the jurisdiction of a Scientologist-run arbitration. It's absolute and pure insanity. But Valerie has no choice but to try and follow the process, if only to at least show the court how ridiculous it is. So I think the first two people she requested as arbitrators was, I think the first person was Elizabeth Moss. And Elizabeth Moss said, I can't do it. Or at least Scientology said Elizabeth Moss said she couldn't do it. Then Valerie requested Tom Cruise, and if Tom wasn't available, Shelley Miscavige. Or the other way around. Shelley, if Shelley's not available, Tom Cruise. And Scientology came back and said, how dare you waste our time and the court's time asking for these two arbitrators who you should have already known wouldn't have been available. Why? Tom Cruise is, one of the benefits of having near unlimited wealth is you can dictate your own schedule. It's funny that Scientology would have us believe that because Tom Cruise is so rich and famous, he's less likely to be available, when in fact, I would argue Tom has greater control over his schedule and his availability than, let's say, someone else who maybe couldn't afford to take the time off work just to handle a Scientology arbitration. I'm just throwing it out there. I understand they want us to believe that when you're dealing with hundreds of millions of dollars in big budgets, oh my God, the world rests on your shoulders. Give me a break. Tom Cruise is just another guy. Anyhow, Scientology then went to the court and said, Your Honor, Valerie Haney is clearly not taking this process seriously. We move that you throw out her entire lawsuit. This is all a sham anyway. And the judge basically said, I'm going to give Valerie Haney another chance to make a good faith effort to nominate a Scientologist in good standing to serve on as one of her arbitrators. That's where we're at. All right, let's go back to this. I realized I just said I wasn't going to rehash the whole thing, but then I kind of did. So there you go. Hope that was helpful. Okay. So, well, I guess I'll just read parts of this. Valerie Haney is really striking back at Scientology, which ridiculed her in court on February 2nd for nominating Elizabeth Moss, Tom Cruise, and Shelley Miscavige to be her arbitrator after her 2019 lawsuit was forced into Scientology's own brand of religious arbitration. Okay, good. Just checking my audio. Audio is good. Okay. With a March 15th court hearing coming up, Valerie has gone all out, nominating a stellar list of well-known Scientology names. John Cole. This is hilarious because John Cole is Greta Van Sustren's husband. Greta Van Sustren. Did you guys know Greta Van Sustren's a Scientologist? OT8, high-level Scientologist. Her husband, John Cole, is as well. Jenna Elfman. Jenna Elfman was nominated as a potential arbitrator. Okay. Giovanni Ribisi. That's amazing. Giovanni Ribisi. That's fine. You guys know who he is. Rebecca Minkoff. Okay. Emily Jones is an interesting one. She is a Sea Org member who holds a post at Author Services International, which is a high-level Scientology organization. Eric Geisler. I can never remember if this is pronounced Geisler or Giesler. I think it's Geisler. And he is a well-known, notorious Scientology spy who helped Scientology spy on Mark Headley. Eric Geisler is a real piece of work. Catherine Bell, the famous actress from JAG and Army Wives. Catherine is interesting because she's one of the few Scientologists who has, so she was in Scientology in a, I guess you'd call it a cis hetero marriage. And she divorced her husband, and another female Scientologist divorced her husband so that they could get together, and they now live as a couple. My point here is Catherine Bell is one of the only Scientologists I know who, while in Scientology, essentially came out and is living as an outed person with another woman, and yet still continues to be an adherent to Scientology who thinks people in same-sex relationships are as close to pure evil as possible. Can you imagine being a self-hating Scientologist like that? That must be very difficult. Okay. Matt Feshbach. Well, okay, I don't want to say who Matt Feshbach is. He's just a rich Scientologist who's actually not so rich because he's kind of bankrupt. But he and his brothers were some of the first big donors ever to Scientology. Jessica Feshbach. Now, this is interesting because Jessica Feshbach was the person who never left Katie Holmes's side while Katie was with Tom Cruise. When you would see Katie Holmes giving an interview, Jessica Feshbach is the weirdo that would be sitting next to her, answering questions for her when Katie couldn't think of the answer quickly enough. Jessica Feshbach is also the one who would interrogate Katie Holmes whenever she made Tom Cruise unhappy. That would be an interesting one. Bob Duggan. Bob Duggan is the wealthiest Scientologist in the world. He was the CEO of a biotech company. I believe it's called Pharmacyclics. I don't know if he's still the CEO or not. Bob Duggan has actually distanced himself from Scientology, even though he will not admit that publicly. I've got some inside skinny that Bob Duggan is essentially not really a Scientologist anymore. But if a journalist gets him on the phone, he will pretend like he is. He doesn't want any of that smoke. He doesn't want that Tom Cruise, David Miscavige beef. So he keeps his mouth shut. Grant Cardone, Scientology's biggest con man, fraudster, grifter, future inmate of a federal penitentiary, hopefully, fingers crossed. Grant Cardone would be amazing. Ben Shaw, Scientology's reclusive spokesperson in Clearwater, Florida. A Ben Shaw sighting is right up there on par with a Bigfoot sighting. You never see this guy anywhere, despite being a Scientology spokesperson. Craig Jensen, I believe a former operative of Scientology's Guardian's office, if I'm not mistaken, now a rich Scientology business owner. I believe the name of the company was Executive Software, but then it changed to, I think, Diskeeper or something like that. I could have it wrong, but it's something like that. Pat Harney. You can actually see Pat Harney. She has been sighted out in the wild many times here in downtown Clearwater. She is a Scientology spokesperson, but only for Clearwater affairs. Kristen Catano. She works in Scientology's Office of Special Affairs International. Kirsten is someone who has all of the dirt. Kirsten knows all of the dirt. If she ever escapes or blows from Scientology, Miscavige should be very, very worried. Okay, this continues. No, we don't need that. We don't need that. All right. Well, during a February 2 court hearing in Los Angeles, we had the opportunity to listen in from New York and gave our readers an account of the proceedings. The matter at hand was the matter at hand was Valerie's lawsuit against Scientology, which has been forced into Scientology's brand of religious arbitration. Scientology was arguing that Valerie has not done enough to get that arbitration proceeding going and was asking the judge to toss out the lawsuit as a result. Okay, I'm not going to read every word here. Let's move forward here. So Scientology, guys, was basically saying Valerie should know hundreds of Scientologists that she could name, but for some reason she's only naming famous celebrities. This is what they were arguing. That is during the February 2 hearing, Scientology attorney William Foreman argued that because Valerie had grown up in Scientology and left in 2006, she should know hundreds of Scientologists she could choose from to nominate. This is a fantastic response that Valerie's attorney Graham Barry made to the court regarding that position that Scientology's attorneys was taking. It is misleading for defendants to claim that plaintiff must know which Scientologists are or are not in good standing with Scientology. CSI is Church of Scientology International. Scientologists are constantly going in and out of good standing with Scientology. At any one time, many Scientologists are not in good standing because they're being punished for ethics violations or other offenses or doing lower conditions as punishments. Plaintiff was a member of Scientology's Sea Organization. And at any one time, numerous SEERG members who have committed ethics transgressions, or other transgressions are also doing abuse of lower conditions on Scientology's Rehabilitation Project Force. Now, presently, the Rehabilitation Project Force no longer exists, but that doesn't matter. Then there are the Scientologists who were once in good standing, but who were subsequently declared to be suppressive persons who may be deprived of property or injured by any means, may be tricked, sued, or lied to, or destroyed. Consequently, it is disingenuous for defendants to argue that as a former Scientologist, plaintiff Valerie must know many Scientologists in good standing. Moreover, defendants being Scientology, now deem Valerie Haney to be a suppressive person for filing suit against the church. I do not know what inter alia means, so I skipped that word. Okay. A Scientologist in good standing is not permitted to have any form of communication with a suppressive person, such as Valerie Haney. Accordingly, it is impossible for Valerie to be certain as to who are current Scientologists and which of these persons are in or out of good standing. Okay, so that's probably enough of that. So here's what's interesting. So, Valerie's attorney is basically asking, in the last hearing, asked the judge herself, Judge, we ask that you select the arbitrators since Scientology continues to play games with us. And in order for you to select the arbitrators, we ask that you request that Scientology provide to you a complete list of all Scientologists in good standing in Los Angeles County. That is a fascinating request. It does allow Scientology to stop playing games. Scientology wants the court to think it's Valerie who's playing games. But we've already been down this path before when it comes to selecting arbitrators. Anybody that Valerie requests is going to be interrogated by Scientology as to, why is Valerie requesting you? Are you secretly in touch with Valerie? Are you secretly sympathetic with Valerie's cause? Are you conspiring with Valerie to find in her favor? In other words, Valerie, by merely adding a Scientologist to her list, potentially causes that Scientologist to be considered no longer in good standing. See, Scientology would never possibly want Valerie to get an arbitrator that she wanted, because they would suspect that there was some ulterior motive why she wanted that person. Do you see how Scientology plays games with this? And Scientology wants the court to butt out, to keep its nose out of any of these internal operations and these internal decisions. They want to have religious freedom to do as they wish, but they still want the courts to enforce, to rule, to validate the enforceability of these contracts. But they don't want the court to be able to determine the legality, the fairness of the contracts under contract law. It gets really stupid and messy. That's where we're at on this. That is where we are at. I really wonder, let's go back to the list real quick. I'm going to reshare. Let me reshare the thing here. Window, here we go. Let's take one more look at this list. John Cole. See, what would be amazing about having John Cole selected as an arbitrator is that he's actually an attorney. And so if John Cole were to be on the arbitration, and then the arbitration were to occur, and Valerie's team would somehow figure out how to document the absolute absurdity of the arbitration and how it's not even possible to be fair and balanced, and they don't allow Valerie to bring in evidence, and they don't allow Valerie to have an attorney, and they don't allow Valerie to record the proceedings, John Cole himself as an attorney would possibly be in a position of having to explain to the judge how he thought this thing could possibly meet the standard of a fair arbitration. That would be interesting. Jenna Elfman, I don't know why she's on here other than the fact that it's interesting. Headline grabbing, perhaps. Giovanni Ribisi. Oh, you know why these guys are on here? This is why they're on here. Because these celebrities are largely kept sheltered from the horrible, horrible abuses that David Miscavige perpetuates upon people at the international base. And by bringing in a celebrity to serve on the arbitration panel, it basically shoves their face in the fact that Val had to literally escape from the international base in the trunk of a car of a non-Scientologist actor who was on the base shooting a Scientology film, a program, whatever it was. She literally had to escape in the trunk of a car. You might, if this sounds familiar, you might have seen or heard Valerie's story on the Scientology in the Aftermath television show. I think it was in the 3rd season. And I believe that is probably why she has named some of these celebrities. Rebecca Minkoff, again, a fascinating name. I don't actually know why Emily Jones is on this list. I don't really know why Eric Geisler's on this list. I think Catherine Bell's on the list for the same reason we just mentioned. Perhaps Matt Feshbach. I'm not sure why Jessica Feshbach's on this list, but it's a fascinating name. Bob Duggan. Now, again, shoving his face in the fact that this organization, guys, Bob Duggan has donated hundreds of millions of dollars to Scientology. Bob Duggan should have his face shoved in the fact that he's supporting an organization that treats its most senior members so horribly that they have to escape in the trunk of a stranger's car. And by the way, how long is the car ride from Gilman Hot Springs to Glendale or Studio City, which is more or less where I believe Valerie ended up getting out of the trunk of the car? When the actor, it wasn't until the actor drove home, parked, and was getting out of his car that he discovered somebody was in his trunk. I think it's like a 90-minute drive in the trunk of a car in California. Absolutely unbelievable. Pat Harney's a bit of a strange one. I don't know. And Kirsten Catano. I wouldn't want Kirsten Catano on an arbitration panel that I was being subjected to. So I'm not sure what the deal is with that. So, all right, let's see. Go regular view. Okay, that's all I got on that one. That is the update on the Valerie case, and a pretty big update. I'm just looking through the comments here. I see one from Vonda. Thank you for the super sticker, Vonda. I saw, I think, one more. Let me try to catch it before I sign off, everyone. And by the way, there's at least one of the live stream I'm going to do before this evening. Okay, nope, that was it, guys. That was it. Stay tuned. More to come. Talk to you guys soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right here. Bye.